Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Lunch and Listen. I'm Helen from Dementia Carers Count and I'm delighted to be joined today by Lucy and Felicity from the Good Company People. Hi both, and thanks so much for taking the time to come and join us today. We'll come on to the Good Company People in a minute, but first, would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about yourselves?
Hello. I'm Lucy, co-founder with Felicity of the Good Company People, and I am a carer for my mum who lives with Parkinson's disease dementia. And in my previous life, I was a TV producer, so I used to produce the likes of Big Brother and Love Island, and then I went on to found an international children's charity. I handed that over, and now the Good Company People. Felicity?
Hi, I'm Felicity. I have been working with Lucy on this project for about 18 months now. And I have 3 kids. Before I started working with Lucy, I was a full-time mum with a few projects on the side. But before that, I worked in PR and marketing in London for a few agencies, with some big clients, quite a fast-paced, busy job, which I really enjoyed, but it wasn't feasible to go back into that. And so I'm pleased to be working on something that I really believe in and that I can do at home and impact our community.
Thank you, that's great. And just to say, if you have anything you want to ask us during the session, please leave your questions in the comments below. We'll try and answer them, but please bear with us. It's not always possible. And I know some people prefer to send private messages to keep it anonymous, and that's absolutely fine, of course. If we don't get to answer your question in the session, we will spend some time at the end responding to the chat, so don't worry too much. So, as co-founders of the Good Company People, I'm going to start with asking you, how did it all begin and what was your thinking behind it?
Well, I think the saying is that the mother, what is it? Necessity is the mother of all invention. And when my mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease dementia, I spoke to a lot of carers, and I just wanted to know what was ahead. And it was really, really hard. It was really tough to listen to people on their knees describing their experiences like a slow train crash. And I just thought something must be done about this. At the same time, my mum had relatively early, she was diagnosed at 69. And my mum didn't want to fit into she didn't want to go to a group of 20, 30 old people as she saw it. She wanted to do her own thing. So that's how, I thought of the idea and the concept behind the Good Company, about having almost a really small micro day service where you had 2 to 3 people in a room, and you really found out about the person and their lives and who they are, and building on that and discovering who they are, building sessions around those people, and then also giving carers a respite. So that was the idea, and then Felicity joined me, and the last 18 months has been a huge learning curve, and I'm going to throw it over to Felicity to explain the original concept and where we are now.
So we're still sticking to the original concept of kind of understanding what makes people tick. Just because you're living with dementia doesn't mean you don't enjoy your hobbies and you don't want to get out and about. So that concept is still at the core of everything we're doing. What we've found is that we really need to earn the trust of the people that we support, both them and their carers, and it's taken us longer than we thought, and it's a new idea, so it's taking a while to get to where we are now, which is with some really good hosts on board, some groups, really amazing groups happening every day of the week, but as part of that we've realized that it's
I'm sorry, Felicity, I think we've lost you a little bit there.
I think being COFO, I could probably end her
Please go ahead, and hopefully Felicity will join us back in a second.
So the idea is that what we wanted to do is develop a lot more experiences for carers and the people they support. So we've been putting on dementia welcoming supper clubs and Saturday socials and walking groups to be able to bring 20, 30 carers and the people that they support in a room. And that builds friendships. And because we've been doing the discovery sessions on everyone, we know who's in the room and we know who's going to get on well together. And we've seen real genuine friendships form. And on the side, I've just been covering off experiences for Felicity whilst you froze. If you can hear me. Can you follow? And then once we did the experiences, then we discovered that actually what the carers really needed was oh, she's gone. What we really needed was almost, which came up with the Dementia Carers Count survey, was having someone there throughout your whole journey, that one point of contact that could take you right from the beginning all the way through and have your back and support you rather than just when you get to a crisis. So the idea altogether is doing the regular respite service based upon people's hobbies and interests, providing a concierge service, which is very much how can we help, and then just creating the most fabulous experiences that everyone wants to go to. We've been doing wine tasting, music sessions, pottery, and it's just a lot of fun.
I mean, it sounds wonderful. And just something to pick up on what you said earlier about your experiences. You've both mentioned yourselves have been carers. Could you tell us a bit about your caring responsibilities and how that's impacted on your lives? Felicity, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry, I dropped out of the...
No, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine.
Yes, so I have often said I feel a bit of a fraud saying that I'm a carer because I haven't provided 24-hour, even daily care for my father, but he has dementia and a number of other health concerns, and I live 2.5 hours away from him. My sisters are an hour and a bit away from him, and for various reasons we can't care for him on a daily basis. But what we have done, and specifically through COVID, we were his lifeline, really. So I did his Sainsbury's order online. It would turn up at his house, and then I'd get the Sainsbury's van calling saying he was not expecting a Sainsbury's delivery. And my sisters would organise appointments for him. We'd take days off to go and take him to those appointments, or we'd liaise with drivers that could take him. So we did all of that sort of remotely as much as we could. And so it took me a while to realise that I was a carer, and it also took us a while to realise my dad was living with dementia, because we, throughout COVID, we didn't get a proper diagnosis. We do now have that, and it's made a real difference to how we understand how to support him.
And my mum lives with my wife and I and our dog Buddy, and it's a very interesting. It's almost as if you get all your ducks in a row and all your care sorted, and then something changes. So you're constantly running and running and running. I think team meetings. Sometimes there'll just be my mum just standing behind me, and then she'll just chip in. And what's wonderful is that this good company, my mum helped me set up my old charity, my old international development charity. And so my mum's purpose, her why in life is to help people. So she absolutely loves being the person who, at the time when we prototyped good company sessions, she was the one giving us her opinion. When we're having team meetings, she'll chip in. Sometimes it will make sense, sometimes it won't, but for her it does. And I think the understanding of the team is that it might be a 9:30 team meeting and we've been up since 4:30, and it will be a complete understanding from everyone in the room that it's going to be a bad day, or you know, I got the train to London today. I had my mum, 10 minutes. I was thinking I can leave her for 10 minutes in front of the TV. She'll be fine. And she walks off down to the neighbours. So it's just constantly, you know, trying to set up a startup, as well as trying to, care for your mum full time. It's like a vice. In fact, sometimes it sounds awful, but it does. It feels mum's needs are only getting more, and the good company is only going to get bigger.
I'm sure you've been describing a lot that the people watching now can absolutely understand and probably experience as well. I mean, you've touched on it already, but I'm really interested to hear about how you've moved from you've both had described very successful careers where you've been able to maintain your identity in the chosen professions that you've worked in. And then you have this whole range that you've already been sort of outlining of challenges facing you as now carers. And I just wondered, for example, in the workplace, with that, how have you adapted to coming from that sort of ownership of your own profession and your own career and being listened to and being influential in that way, to using that, and how does that change when you're trying to use your voice as a carer? Perhaps Lucy, sorry, if you'd like to.
I personally think lived experience is, what we all have is lived experience. We as carers, we live it every day, and there's no one who is more who is more authority than carers. So that I believe is a real superpower. And for us, it's really listening hard to carers and understanding exactly what their needs are and how we can create an ecosystem around them. Would be Felicity. I'm brilliant at going off track, so I'm going to hand it over.
I'm just thinking back about your question about you were basically asking, you were listened to in the workplace, and then your role changes as a carer, doesn't it? And I think I fall into that category of someone who's in the sort of sandwich generation, who have got young kids and parents who, my dad specifically, who is quite unwell. And I think it was a huge shift for me, huge shift from working in a fast-paced agency, socializing, getting things done, to then taking a step back and really listening to what was going on with my dad, what was the underlying concern or need, and having to really slow down and listen to that. And I'm really lucky. I've got two sisters that I'm really, really close with, and to work through that together was really, really important. But the skills I've gained from that have been fundamental to my role at Good Company People, because it's that empathy of understanding there's a need that needs to be met, and there's a need that is being expressed somehow, and it may not always be obvious, but if you really listen and put yourself in someone else's shoes, you can kind of understand how you can support them best, which is completely at odds with what I was doing before. But I'd say it's a sort of fine balance. So my personal experience has really helped me identify with the people we're working with, but my professional experience has helped, when we've been, writing copy, when we've been marketing our service, when we've been working at speed to get things done. All those skills I learned have been really transferable. But actually, it was a real blessing in disguise having been caring for my dad, because it's really helped me understand our members. I also had experience when I was working. I volunteered for Contact the Elderly, which is now Re-engage, and that, alongside my work, really, really has given me a pool of experience that I've drawn on. And that volunteering I stopped at, before I had kids, but it still forms a huge part of my identity in my new role.
I think that's so important that you've touched on that. I think it's not one thing or another. You're always drawing on different life experiences and different things that you've faced, and it works both ways as well. Like you said, you know, it's bringing your working experience into what you know, into caring perhaps, but then also, and I think it's something that we've working on with DCC, is that you're able to bring your caring experience back into the workplace. We've got a lot of responses from our survey that carers often don't recognise the skills they've gained as a carer, but of course we do know that they are incredibly transferable, and that you can sort of take on some of those things that you potentially take for granted, that you just do automatically, and use that as a skill in the workplace too.
Go on.
Well, one thing, Helen, you know, that I'm very aware of is just how privileged I am to have, you know, my wife with me looking after my mum. And, you know, it's so testing sometimes, you know, if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you can't, you know, and, you know, and I think that the challenge, and I feel so much for people who don't have someone else. So it might be 4 o'clock in the morning, and you've got to deal with it, and you have no one to go, I can't do this anymore. Just, you know, you know, we're always swapping in, as you know, when it's taken 45 minutes for mum to take her pill, and then we've discovered that she spat it out and it's at the bottom of her glass, that was last night. You know, it's like you have to swap in, and a lot of carers are on their own.
Yeah, we've just got a message in the chat just saying it sounds lucky you had that support, and I think that's a really key thing.
I am so privileged, but I know that that's not for most people. I can imagine you're caring for a husband or a wife, you know, your children might be away, and one of the things that we've seen is that you know, it's almost as if the more and more you care, the more insulated your life gets, because the less you see friends, the less you go out and go to that yoga class or do that painting group. And it's like, you know, if you're a web and you're attached to society, every single time you're cutting yourself off. And that's what I believe that, you know, that we do. We basically look at and we see everything that you've got in your life, and give you the confidence to pick up the phone to that friend that you've lost contact with, to see if you can carry on, because you need that support system around you. And yeah, I am very lucky to have that support, and I have my dad opposite and my sister. But that's not the case for so many people.
And it should be. People should have the support they need, and it's important for carers to try and reach out where they can if there is support. And of course DCC is always here with support and information where it's needed, so please do get in touch if you do feel you need to get support. We'll put all the details and contact details in the comments, so you will have that there. Just going back to your careers and those transferable skills, we are hosting a series of webinars in November, and one of them will involve you, Lucy, talking about this subject in more detail. And we will be leaving some details about those webinars in the comments below. And this is really about how you can use your experiences caring, or how you can develop skills that you'd like to, if you'd like to return to the workplace, or if you'd like to change your career path. So if you think that would be of interest, please do join us for those sessions. And like I said, there'll be more detail in the chat, so or you can get in contact with us. Just moving on a bit more about the good company people. Before we came on air, we were talking, and again, it goes back to sort of the luck of the draw almost, because you mentioned that you're quite conscious about doing this session because geographically the good company people really covers quite a specific area, and obviously that's not going to be you know, useful for a lot of the viewers now today. So I'm just thinking that it's still really important for carers and the person living with dementia to see opportunities like this, and to see the possibilities, and possibly to kind of, you know, fight for those services in their own areas as well if they can. So what do you think about the idea that, you know, it's about making opportunities that are out there better, more varied, more sort of suitable for the people with dementia and the people caring for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge that, you know, having heard about your research, it's a challenge that a lot of carers face, is that in their local area they don't know who to call, and that's one of the main things that we're trying to, the main ways we're trying to support carers. You know, you say we are only in a small area, but we will, you know, the aim is to be world domination, is, you know, it's to go where the need is next. And you know, we're in a corner of East Sussex at the moment, but we know where the next area will be. We know where there is demand for services, and that's our aim. And our aim is to make something sustainable that could be templated in different areas of the country as well. So yeah, so if it sparks interest in anyone, you know, that's where we're aiming to be. And we also work with Dementia Carers Count as a knowledge partner. So we're drawing on your resource and your expertise on a kind of more accessible level, you know, nationally. But it's kind of it's the starting point.
Yeah. And just noticed a question in the chat, if that's okay, about how you can access services like yours if you only have 3 hours respite per week. I guess it's about sort of how that can be supported, how people can be supported to take the opportunities when they are available.
Yeah,
Lucy, if you...
and I think that's one of the challenges we've had, because we're looking at how we can create really affordable, high quality, personalized day services. And so over the last 3 weeks, we've just been piloting a day service in a fully trained host's house, which, you know, who's been accredited by East Sussex County Council, our local authority. And they've been providing, with a co-host, personalized, you know, day services for up to 6 people. And we're trying to get it at an affordable price. So we're just in the process of getting charitable status so it can be affordable, because I think that's the greatest challenge. It's, you know, you can just about afford to get someone in the morning and in the evening to do the necessities, the personal hygiene. But actually what it is that you need on top of that to live well, you need to be able to have, you know, a social life. You need to be able to have time off. And so that's where we're really going, to develop affordable day services that are accessible to all. So watch this space.
To that point about, you know, how do you access the help when you only have 3 hours? And that's exhausting, because you've got a maze of information to sift through, and you've got to find who's the right person to call in those 3 hours. And I think having helplines like the Dementia Carers Count one, and, you know, and ours, you know, for our area, there are helplines and there are people, you know, even if it's your council, that you can call, and that's one big step to take. You know, to make that call is a huge step, and it will open doors. But it might be a process of elimination of kind of where are you going to get the right help. But making the call in the first place is a huge step, and it takes courage, and it takes time, and it takes headspace.
I completely agree. We've heard from carers who have, you know, in absolute desperation, have been knocking on doors for some amount of time, finally make that contact, finally get through, and it unlocks a whole suite of support sometimes, you know, because they've reached that point. And it shouldn't be that they reached that point. But likewise, I believe with services like yours, because you're engaging with other carers, that's another way that carers often find out about different things that are available to them. And, you know, I think with your services, you have someone, a dementia sort of expert, if you like, in the room, sort of, who can support people, carers, to understand a bit more, which I think is vital, and obviously something we offer here, because I think it's really important that carers can try and understand. I mean, one of the key things that came through the survey is just not knowing what happens next, and sort of being left in this limbo of kind of just waiting for the next thing to happen. And so I think it's really important for, you know, carers to be able to kind of talk to other carers and find out what actually is available for them. You know, and as much, you know, the Good Company people supports that, and we do too. I think that's really essential. There's a comment in the chat I'm just going to go through. You sound like you're really trying hard, and we appreciate that. It's a nice idea to try and bring together the community. but they're tired of all the services and charities only offering one thing, and then trying to work out who I should be calling what. So that goes back to exactly that, and that goes back to the concierge idea, doesn't it? That idea that carers are baffled by the amount of things out there, and it's very true. There's different pathways and different suggestions. Do you have any suggestions for carers on that issue, or ideas for how we could, how you could be helping?
I think that what I'm learning is that there is a lot out there, but it's almost as if you need a golden key to unlock the maze, and most people don't have the key. And it's taken us, I'd say, Felicity, about a year and a half of being real snoops to find out what everything is there out there. And you know what? It's not one size fits all. So that's why you need to curate these. So you need to be able to learn about people's lives, find out who they are and who the person that they support, and curate introductions rather than just, saying, here is a stack of brochures. Good luck, because that will be filed away and never, ever opened, because people don't have time. And so I think it's just about meeting people at the pace or where they are and going at their speed, rather than just ticking a box and saying, we've seen you.
And I would say as well, be really savvy about where you put your energy. We had a carers meet up the other day, and the direct feedback from that has been that those couple of hours has been almost invaluable for a couple of the members who's for the first time identified as a carer and for the first time spoke to other carers in the same area. So it may be that going to something like a carers meetup or plugging into an online chat about carers in your area, you probably get a wealth of information from those people, which is first-hand current information, rather than sitting at home trying to trawl through things yourself. That might be a really useful way of spending your time. I understand it takes effort and organisation to get out to a meeting, but there are ways of doing it, and it could unlock a lot of information, a lot of support.
It's like snakes and ladders, isn't it? You want to go the ones up the ladder. You want to go the ladder. That's what it's like.
Maybe you need that golden key to get there.
To get the
final effort. Yeah. It's
nice.
I suppose what we're looking at and what carers experience on a daily basis is just how difficult it can be to navigate, and when it's a really tricky situation for many carers. So I need to wrap this up now, so I just wanted to thank you both so much for joining us today. It's been really refreshing to hear about your venture with the Good Company people and how that's having a positive impact on communities. Also, thank you for sharing your own accounts of being a carer, because we know it's not easy to join these live sessions and then openly speak about things that are quite personal, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks for all the comments.
Was there anything else you wanted to, to add as we're coming to a close? Is there any other points you wanted to raise? Oh, I should say all the details about the Good Company people will be in the chat as well, so you should be able to see that.
I just think that you're all doing an amazing job. If you are dementia carers and you're involved in Dementia Carers Count, you're in the right place.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier, Lucy will be speaking at one of our webinars in November about how the experiences you've had as a carer can be beneficial to you if you're looking at returning to work, or if you're just looking to change your job as well. So please do look out for the details. And if you think that's something that you would benefit from, or you're interested in finding out more, please do get in touch with us, and we'd love to have you join us. And then for next week, we'd love you to join us on Facebook for next Thursday's Lunch and Listen session, in which our senior specialist practitioner, Kate Legg, and associate practitioner, Jane Stanfield, will be discussing spirituality and dementia. So I'm really looking forward to that one. If you can, do pop the kettle on and put your feet up with us for half an hour next week. And my last thing to do is to say, if you have left a question in the comments that we haven't had a chance to get to, we will do that as soon as possible. We will be remaining online just to finish up and answer any comments that we haven't been able to. So thank you again to Lucy and Felicity. Huge thanks. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. Take care.